My name is Olimpia Zagnoli, and I'm an illustrator from Milan, Italy. I don't remember when I began drawing exactly, but it's definitely a long time ago. This is a picture of me that my dad took when I was about, I think, 10 years old. I guess we were in a hotel room, because that's definitely not our house. It doesn't look like that at all. I grew up in a quite creative environment. My dad is a photographer and my mom is an artist. Our first computer was a Macintosh, and I was allowed to use it sometimes. And these are the beautiful paintings that I would make with it. But I have to say that many years later and many Apple computers after, I'm still pretty much doing the same stuff that I was doing back then. I work a lot with editorial clients. I make a lot of illustrations for magazines, for newspapers, in Italy and in Europe and mostly in the States. And I make prints. I work with books. This was a quite recent illustration that I made for The Guardian. I made this for the New York subway system. Sometimes I do book covers as well, and children books. This is a version of The Wizard of Oz that I made for Rockport Publishers a few years ago. But lately, I've been starting to work a lot more three-dimensionally. So I had the chance to work with design brands in Milan. I made a series of kinetic sculptures for an exhibition of mine. They're all like laser-cut plexiglass sculptures. Is a series of 10, and each one makes a different thing. So I don't know if you can see it, but the last lady smokes. So every time she blows out some smoke, which was very funny to see in person. I opened an online shop with my dad. It's called Clodomiro, and it features T-shirts, pillows, and plates, and a few other things that have a slight erotic twist to it. It's more about love, I guess you can say. I recently did some collaboration with fashion brands. I work with Marella, which is a brand from the Max Mara group in Italy. We did 3 capsule collections, and this was the last one that we did last summer and spring. These were some illustrations that I made for Prada last summer, like this past summer, that they translated onto T-shirts, and they made a few other nice, expensive items, like shoes and bags. A few summers ago, actually, I worked on this project, and this is kind of like the section of my work that I want to talk to you more about, because it talks more about personal projects, which is, I think, an aspect of the work that needs to be cultivated every day, and we don't really get a chance to do it that much. And I think that there's always time, there must be time for it. So this is a book and an exhibition that I did a few years ago. It's called La Grande Estate, or The Big Summer, and it's based on sketches that I made of landscape around Tuscany over a summer, and then all these sketches are included in the book and in the exhibition, and then they were translated into digital images. And I hardly do landscapes, because a lot of clients tend to ask for people in the illustrations that I do. And so it was really refreshing to do something different. Last winter, I worked on this series which is called How to Eat Spaghetti Like a Lady. And it's basically a response to a series of photographs that came out on Life magazine during the 20s, which was called How to Eat Spaghetti Like a Lady. And it was basically a guide for women, teaching them how to eat spaghetti in a very elegant way, because they're not easy to eat. And so I made a series of women for this exhibition that actually ate spaghetti the way they wanted to. It became an exhibition at the Antonio Colombo Gallery in Milano. And I also had the chance to work on neon this time. It's been a dream of mine to work on something like that. And I think that this was the perfect time, because if you think about it, what's neon if not a spaghetto of light, basically? I love working with exhibitions because you have the opportunity to basically fill a space, a white room, with whatever idea, crazy idea that you have in your drawings that you're kind of like scared to take out, and having an exhibition gives you the chance to do so. And for the last exhibition that I made in the beginning of May this year in Los Angeles, I had a lot of ideas, and I had to pick which story I wanted to tell. So I started with something like this.
Il gelato al caramello pralinato, gusto cioccolato, la voglia matta di avventura che ho, con Tuseroni son sicura ce l'ho, a Tuseroni il mio gelato, e si chiama Blob. Blob ci prova gusto, Blob ci prova gusto, Blob ci prova gusto.
So this is just one of the hundreds of commercials that, if you were a kid born in Italy between the late 70s and the 80s, you would have probably been bombarded with. Those were the times of, like foot-shaped ice cream, all kinds of like fizzy sodas, bubblegum, everything, glow-in-the-dark, everything, toy cars that would change color with water, Barbies with pink hair. And coming from a household where I wasn't allowed to watch much TV, and the toys that I had were mostly wooden or very educational, like I had all these toys like build your own candle or learn how to recycle paper. So all this imaginary of these toys and these sodas and this ice cream felt a little bit like LSD to me. Also, if I think about those times, I remember also a lot of like very quiet moments where I would just like sit on a plastic chair outside of a cafe with my mom reading and smoking, and I would be just there, maybe, I don't know, sipping iced tea, with no iPhones, no iPads, no Peppa Pig, just like basically waiting for the afternoon to go on and pass. So I wanted to tell this story, like I wanted to try to translate this sort of like emotions and feelings and memories into like a visual thing, a visual exhibition. So the first element of this sort of narrative is this sign that you see up there. I remember seeing this sign many years ago in the little city of Rapallo on the seaside. And I remembered it, because I really liked it, and it's strange. It's like an ice cream sign, but it's also like quite 80s, but I think it's from the 70s. And so I knew that I wanted to start this exhibition from that specific sign, so I didn't know where to find it, so I went on Google Maps, and I literally went through every single street of Rapallo, and I didn't even know if it was still there. And it was. The place is not an ice cream parlor anymore. It's a vegetable and fruit shop. But I kind of like saw this corner, and I thought it was perfect, because this picture is taken like probably last year or 2 years ago, but you have all the elements that I'm talking about, like the bar sign, the Coca-Cola sign, the Panini sign, the parking one, the Vespa in the front, and the ice cream. So the thing that it's the kind of like started this sort of like exhibition mechanism, if you want to call it like that, was that sign. And I thought that I wanted to have a replica of it in the exhibition. So I started making sketches, and these are some of the first sketches that I made. I also wanted to sort of like use this language of like this very angular sort of like ice cream shape. So the sign was the main element that sort of like started me off. And then the main part of the exhibition is actually a series of still lifes. This is just like a sketch that I did to start with and see if I like the composition. So basically the biggest part of the exhibition is a series of compositions, of elements, of, again, like bottles and shapes and colors and brands that I remember from back then. I call the show Cuore di Panna, which is the slogan of a very famous ice cream in Italy. Literally, it means heart of whipped cream, which I really like because it's very sweet, but it also makes no sense. And I think it sort of like describes very well the spirit of that time. So after I started doing the first sketches, obviously you need to kind of like think about the space. So my assistant built this model, which was kind of new for me because I never did an exhibition like that. And so these are all these images that came up. Probably some of you will recognize some brands or some bottle shapes or some, I don't know, ice cream shape. There's obviously an element of nostalgia to these works, but I also didn't want to indulge too much into it. I didn't want it to be too romantic. Let's say it's more of a photograph of a moment in time when things felt really like innocent. And it also was a moment, like a photograph of a moment in Italian history right before the election of Silvio Berlusconi, who changed completely the cultural landscape in Italy. And also, it was also the beginning of me not being a child anymore. So it's a moment where you realize that life maybe is not as easy as it looks in those commercials. So it's not just about like being on the beach and kissing boys and eating ice cream or, you know, like going on a bike or something like that. So I kind of like this contrast, and this is like the replica of the sign that I was mentioning before. The colors are a bit weird in this picture, but anyway, you get a sense. So again, life is not as easy as it looked in those commercials, but I can still buy a Coke without asking permissions to my parents, which is really cool, I think. Thank you.